That's great. Well, it is 9:30, so I hope everybody is okay. We'll just get this started. So first of all, if you could, please everybody mute except for those that are speaking. That would really help the feedback. And then if you haven't been on Zoom calls during this COVID-19 era, sometimes if you get a slow internet connection, it's easier to put a blank screen without the video. But if you have no problem with your internet, you can stay on video for sure. It's just fine. But first, I want to thank Senator Judy Warnick, Representative Tom Dent, and Representative Alex Yabera for joining us today. This is the Chamber's virtual meet and greet. There are a few things before we begin that I'd like to kind of set some guidelines to this meeting. The first one is be kind in our interactions today. Be patient. We will get to as many of the comments that we can in the hour that we've set aside for today's meeting. And be respectful. So because we're providing an hour's meeting, we may need to have a follow-up Zoom call, which is fine. We're happy to coordinate that because I know there's been some questions, some pre-questions that we have, but as we talk with one another, we know that there's going to be some conversation that might take a little bit longer than what is intended. So just if you can just be mindful of those three things, be kind, be patient, and be respectful, I think we'll have a good call today. With that, I think what I would like to do, just so Gemma, she's my staff member that's on. If we could unmute yourself and introduce yourself, and I'll do it based on my screen. And for Senator Warnick and Representative Danton Yabera, we'll hang tight because we'll let you do your introduction and some additional comments if you'd like. So we'll skip over you, but it's nothing personal. So we'll start on my screen and introduction. Mike?
Yeah, I'm Mike Nolan, superintendent in the Kittitas School District.
Thank you. And I'm seeing a screen name of Dams.
Sharon Dam, Kittitas Legislative Rep.
And then Gemma.
Gemma Hollingsworth. I am the membership director for the Chamber of Commerce. You've probably gotten a lot of emails from me over the past couple days.
And Carrie Barr.
Good morning, Carrie Barr, and I'm with KVH. I'm Chief of Clinic Operations.
Oh, thank you. Mandy Olson.
I'm Mandy Olson. I'm the Director of Quality and Infection Control at KVH, but I'm also the Safety Officer for our County Incident Command.
Thank you for coming. Steve DuPont.
Good morning, Steve DuPont. I'm a Government Relations Director at Central Washington University.
Gail Goodwin.
I'm the Executive Director at Elmview.
Thank you. Danielle Bricker.
Good morning. I am a small business owner in Upper Kittitas County and also sit on the Planning Commission for the City of Roslyn.
Steve Townsend. You got to unmute yourself, Steve.
Let's try this again. Good morning. I'm Steve Townsend, Managing Partner for Hotel Windrow in Ellensburg.
Sarah Augustine. You're going to have to unmute yourself, Sarah.
Sorry, I thought I had. I am the Executive Director of the Dispute Resolution Center of Yakima and Kittitas counties, and it's good to see you all this morning.
Thank you. Ken Camarada.
Hi, I'm an architect, live here in the Valley. My office is down in Yakima, so I work in both areas and actually all over Eastern Washington. So,
welcome. Jeff, and I always butcher your last name, so Jeff from the Ellensburg Rodeo.
Yeah, Jeff Legislator. I'm on the board of directors for the rodeo and in charge of marketing, public relations, and community relations. Hi, Steve.
And I'm going to assume, is this Leslie from the horse park? Leslie.
Yes, it is. It's me.
Okay. Mary Dawn Bunton. We can't see you, but it looks like you're muted. There we go.
Sorry, I don't have a camera on my computer. I'm with the Kittitas PUD.
Welcome. Kevin Esslinger.
Yes, am I muted?
You are now. I've unmuted you. Oh.
Muted?
Yep, you're good to go.
Kittitas Reclamation District, and I'm covering for Urban Eberhard. He had an appointment with his father today.
Thank you. Gallery 1.
Hi, everyone. Monica Miller with Gallery 1, and also here on behalf of the Columbia Association of Museum and History.
Thank you. Carly Jensen.
Yes, good morning. Carly Jensen, manager of Heritage Bank here in Ellensburg.
Thank you. Christina Woolman.
Christina Woolman. I'm here in place of Kirk Holmes. We work for Petite in Ellensburg.
Thank you. Del Knutson.
Yeah, I'm here with the Kittitas County Association of Realtors, Government Affairs, and also Washington State Association Realtors Director.
Thank you. Gina Gibson. Gina or Jenna? Is it Gina or Jenna? We'll go over Sherry. And we'll end with Nicola Hola.
Yeah, I'm here, Amy. I just was on mute. So
Okay.
I'm here listening today for the Roslyn Downtown Association. Thanks.
Thank you. Nicola Hola.
Hi. Sorry. Never fails when I go to talk, a dog will bark. My name is Nicole Ahola. I'm the president of Ahola Benefit Consultants here in Upper County. And then I'm also on the board for Kittitas Chamber. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, as people pop on, we won't be able to introduce everybody, but what I would like to do is, again, with that, thank again the senator and representatives for joining us today. And if you wouldn't mind, Senator Judy Warnock, we'll let you begin with an intro and any additional thoughts, and then follow that with the representatives, and then we'll continue on to some Q&A.
Okay, good morning. I always love the Kittitas County Chamber sponsoring these type of events. We get such a wide variety of folks all together in one spot. And unfortunately, we just can't do it physically this time. So it's very nice to be able to interact with you. Strange times, very strange. We left Olympia on March 13th. It was Friday the 13th. I don't know if that had anything to do with everything that came down about that time, but our session ended Thursday evening, March 12th, and we were all in a hurry to get out because we could see things starting to happen. And it was right after that that the emergency declaration really started taking effect. So it's been very, very strange for families. I have 2 grandchildren that are seniors this year, and they are really feeling like they're losing out on some of their senior year activities, and which they are. So the families, I live across a kind of a driveway on our farm from my 95-year-old mother-in-law. I have not been in her house since March. We go and we'll have a glass of wine on her deck once in a while, but we keep a very respectful distance, and just because of her age. But, and then the businesses. I own a small business and we're basically shut down, and it's very, very difficult. So I understand some of the questions that have been posed today, and I'll try to answer them not only from the perspective of a legislator, but from a business owner myself. So I just want to tell you a little bit before I turn it over to the reps. Our senators, our caucus meets by phone at least twice a week. We have one today that's going to be discussing the proclamations and the extension of the the governor's proclamations, because the legislature has to weigh in on some of those proclamations if they're going to be extended longer than the original time. So we need to know what they are. We need to know how that's affecting people. We all don't get to vote on it. It is a letter that's signed by the top four legislators, the head of each caucus. In my case, it's Senator Schessler. So we have four of those. We call them the four corners. And so today we're going to be reviewing the request to extend certain proclamations. I don't have them in front of me, so I can't tell you what they are, but we have approved extending some of these proclamations. It's not the big ones. It's not the stay home, stay safe order. And we have had numbers of letters regarding opening of various industries, but he has worked with us on that. Opening fishing, hunting was a big one. And so he did not extend that proclamation. He opened it up with restrictions. So anyway, just want you to know we are working hard to try to represent you, but doing it from a distance, which is very different as well. So I'll turn it over to Rep Dent and Rep Ibarra now. So thanks for hosting this.
Well, good morning again, and we thank you for having this this virtual town hall. We are learning how to do this. You know, most of us in the legislature don't do this as a regular rule. You know, do Zoom meetings and such. So we're learning how it works. But I do thank you for having this. As the senator said, it has been a different world for us. On March 13th, that afternoon, we kind of tag teamed at home in our automobiles, and we stopped in Cle Elum and had dinner there. And you know, we're talking about all the things we're going to do next week, and our plans, our session, our interim plans, and the meetings we had coming up. And hey, guess what? By Monday, everything was so different we couldn't believe it, and struggled some with it, and we have. And you know, as a caucus, as a legislator, as a legislature, we have challenged many of the things that are going on because we weren't sure exactly what was happening, and we didn't feel we were receiving all the information that we needed. But all these decisions that have happened, shutting down the state, the proclamations and such, have all come from the governor's office. It did not come from the legislature. He has the power to do that because we're in a state of emergency, so he's just doing that. So, and as the senator said, we have pushed back and pushed back and pushed back on a lot of things we felt were overreaching, especially in rural Washington. So basically there's about 39 counties in the state, and 35 of them are pretty rural, and they're suffering. And we hear from all of them. I mean, I have friends, I think, in all these counties because they're all sending me, you know, notes on Facebook or texts or emails and asking what's coming. So we, as she said, we've pushed back really hard. We've pushed back hard on many of these issues, and we've also asked to start opening up some of our economy again. You know, my big concern is, we can't save the village by burning it down. And I feel like we're kind of burning it down, and we need to get some folks back to work, if not all, and find out a way to do it safely. So watching with keen interest what's going on in other areas of the country, and how maybe that we can learn something from some of these other folks that are being a little more forthcoming in how they're changing things. We too, in the Republican caucus, we have at least 2 meetings a week, phone calls, and sometimes more, We also have calls with the Hospital Association in the state. We have calls with the governor's office. We usually have one of those a week. The governor's not on the call, but we do talk with his staff. And so we have an avenue to send every question, every concern through to the governor's office. And I usually do. Everything that comes to me that I'm concerned with, I send to the governor's office. So I'd like to have some answers to clarify to the folks at home what this means. And there are so many people in business that don't qualify for SBA loans or any kind of relief. You know, just small entrepreneurs, and the relief isn't there, and they're looking at losing this. So we're trying to find answers and trying to come up with some kind of direction. But again, we hear from people, what are you doing to help us? And we're doing everything we can. We're writing letters, making phone calls. We just I know all three of us are just working our heinies off here, trying to get answers, trying to push, trying to represent all of you, because we really do care and we understand. So, with that being said, I'd better pass it on to Representative Ybarra.
Am I on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well, thanks, President Dent and Senator Warnick. Kind of the same things going on as everybody else. Got home. Unfortunately for me and my little town of Quincy, we happen to be the epicenter of coronavirus. We, I think, had the first death in Eastern Washington. And when I got home, we had maybe 10 folks have cases right away. And so the town really went to lockdown just probably faster than anybody else, just because of our situation, and have been ever since. So we're up to like, I think 54 cases just in my town. And so there's been a lot of work by the leaders in Quincy to try to help the situation out. And so we'll go into some details to what we're doing here. Part of it helping the farmers, helping the H-2A workers that are all the farm workers that we have. Plus, right now we're really getting situated in helping small businesses reopen up. So we've come up with some action plans that the city is doing to get things rolling. Again, we're still getting a lot of cases and stuff, so we're so different than other communities around, like all of Kittitas. Kittitas County is doing just great. I'm really happy for you folks, and you guys did the right things. I'm not sure exactly what you did different than most, but obviously it's working. So I really commend you guys for the wonderful work you're doing to keep everybody safe in Kittitas County. So that's just great. But with that said, I think the senator and the representative talked about what's going on in Olympia, and so I won't repeat that. Thank you.
Well, thank you all three for the updates and the intros. We did get some questions that were prior to this meeting, so we'll start with those, and hopefully by going through some of those questions, maybe we'll answer some questions that are with the attendees today. And so Senator Warnick, I'll just go ahead and pose the questions, and then you can pass it along to the representatives, or if you wanted to answer, we'll kind of do it that way, if that's okay with you.
Okay.
Okay. I'll read the question just for those that are in attendance, and then you can direct us on who's going to answer those questions. So we received this question. It says, we are fortunate in Kittitas County to have had relatively few COVID-19 cases and no deaths. That is likely at least partly a result of the timely restrictions put in place. However, our county has imposed restrictions on the university and on events months into the future that appear to be far more restrictive than other counties, even urban counties. I accept that there are maybe good reasons for more restrictive guidelines in urban versus rural areas, but it would seem to make sense that similar adjacent counties should be consistent. Can the state do anything to assure consistency?
Well, that's a good question. Right now, the state has imposed the state of emergency on the entire state. Now, you mentioned Kittitas. According to our records as of the 27th, Kittitas had 14 cases. and no deaths. King County, adjacent to Kittitas County, had 5,945 cases and 416 deaths. So huge differences adjoining counties, very huge. But I believe what we need to be doing is looking at either a county or a regional authority, similar to what has happened already. There's been counties that have tried to open up under the shutdown. They have not been able to do so because they don't have the authority to do that under the Constitution. When we are under a state of emergency, and we do that once in a while with fires, the wildfires, but it's still a more of a regional approach. And as of an article this morning in the Seattle Times, apparently the governor is talking about giving more regional authority or opening up by region. Now, Rep. Ibarra talked about Grant County. That's the center of our district, and 152 cases. So we have more in Grant County, many times more than Kittitas. But Lincoln County, on the other end of the district, has only had 2 cases and no deaths. So we should not be having a restriction for Lincoln County the same as Grant County or Kittitas. So I believe there will be some loosening of these regulations, even though the question dealt with, shouldn't it be consistent? But it should be consistent with the number of cases in the county. So, and how the county authority handles that, I think they need to have that discussion, especially with the Department of Health and the authority of the county themselves. So I don't know if I answered the question, but I think that's what's going to happen, is there will be opening up gradually. I know with Kittitas in particular, I've heard from folks that are worried about people coming from King County and spending more time in Kittitas County. Some states have put restrictions on. Maybe that's something the county could look at too, as far as people coming in and out of the county on a regular basis. So I'll turn it over to Rep. Dan.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, I don't really have a lot to add other than, you know, there are areas of our state that we're different, you know, rural versus urban. We're different. How we live is different. How we come together as a population is different. Yes, King County and Kittitas County join each other, but we do have kind of a natural barrier there too as well. You know, we have a mountain range that kind of keeps us a little bit separated physically from just not coming together. So, but I also think the one thing that I see in the rural counties is most of us have learned, if we've grown up in a rural area and it's how we lived our lives, we understand social distancing, and we always have. If you didn't feel well, you told your friend. I walk in the office and I don't feel good. I tell Senator, I don't feel good. You stay over there, you know, and she does the same to me. And we've always done that. And I think that's something that we've been able to look at differently, and to look at how do we can maintain a social distancing that really works, and is it part of your life? Is it ingrained in you or not? And when you're in the urban areas, it's different. I mean, it's hard to maintain that space because there's so many people. There isn't room for the space, you know, how it works. And you know, I've been you know, I've spent 10 days in New York City one time, and gee, I don't think you ever get more than a few inches away from other people, and I can see how that could be you know, a major issue there. But the same on the west side of our state, the time that I've spent in Seattle, and I do, you know, as a ranking member on the Early Learning Committee, I do spend time in Seattle at some of the different childcare centers and learn how they work and how they do their programs. And it's much more difficult to maintain that distancing. So some of the things, those are the things that can really work on the consistency part of the question is, you know, how do we ingrain some of this into our everyday life? And, you know, as a person who likes people, it's the hardest thing for me is not to see somebody on the street or in the store and not go up and shake their hand or give them a hug or whatever. It's so that's something we're having to teach ourselves to do, but something we can do. And I think this is definitely a manageable issue. So thank you.
So the next question, as they start the rolling startup, who is the watchdog?
Well, right now, you know, the governor's office is watching this very, very close, and they're working through the Department of Health to kind of track this, and Labor and Industries. They're watching, you know, what we're doing as far as who is the watchdog, who's the cop. You know, I think that'll be by the counties. Some county sheriffs say, no way, we're not going to do anything, and the next county sheriff, they're more agreeable to going out and having a chat with somebody who's maybe not following the rules. But I think who's the watchdog is going to be all of us. We're all in this kind of, I don't like to say we're all in this together. We kind of are, but we're all different. So we're all in this together, but different. And but we, you know, we all have to kind of work on it just a little bit to make it successful.
I'll move it.
Maybe does Alex want to weigh in on that?
Sure, just, you know, now that fishing is open, one of the things that, you know, we've got, all of us have different lakes in Grant County and Lincoln County and Kittitas County. And one of the things we're talking about in this area is, you know, we've got, you know, major fishing lakes in our area. And we're discussing, you know, some of the townsfolk trying to help fish and wildlife folks to make sure that people can go fishing, but at the same time, make sure they're all separated around each other. So we're kind of taking a little initiative and trying to get some folks out there to kind of help the folks, because everybody wants to go fishing. I think we're going to get a lot of people out there. We just want to make sure that, like the representatives and senators said, that we're not right on top of each other. And that's a lot we want to do. And when you go fishing, I don't want to be next to anybody. I want somebody to be about 100 feet away at the closest. So that's what we like. And we just want to make sure that happens throughout our counties.
Thank you. Question 3, when will local, not West Side, hospitals be able to begin elective surgeries? We are hoping this is a high priority as it is having a huge impact on local and regional hospitals.
I hope they can open as soon as possible. We have a number of small hospitals in our district. Kittitas County is one of the actually larger ones. We've got Moses Lake and Ellensburg, but then we have Lincoln County. There's 2 hospitals in Lincoln County, 2 more in Grant County at least. And those hospitals are really suffering because of lack of revenue. They've had to lay people off. So we have asked for more PPEs, more ventilators, so that those local hospitals, even if there is a second wave, as some are predicting, but that the local hospitals can open up, because we don't have that many patients that are actually hospitalized with COVID in those hospitals. And we need our hospitals in our local areas, and plus, nobody has surgery just because they want to. The governor mentioned joint replacements. Well, if you need a joint replacement, you need to have it, because if you don't, you're going to be living with pain medication and to take away the pain. Then we're going to start a whole nother issue with people being addicted to pain medications because they can't get their surgeries. So that is a high priority. I was asked that question yesterday, what's next after we open the fishing? And I immediately said opening the hospitals. So very, very high priority for me.
Okay to go to question 4? Okay. How will they track and quarantine people that test positive after the slow startup?
This is Alex. I guess I can try to answer. I think they're going to keep doing the same thing. I think that their data analysts, it seems to me, from what we heard at the beginning to what we're hearing now, is the data is coming in. They're more confident in the data that's coming in day after day after day. So I think they're going to continue doing what they're doing. I don't think that there's going to be any change at any of the places other than, I just don't think there's going to be a change anywhere. I think everybody's going to keep remaining the same status quo until this kind of blows over. And then I'm guessing in fall that they'll kind of ramp up and be ready for something that might happen in the fall, because they're saying it might, you know, as the weather kind of gets a little bit colder, it might come back, but nobody really knows. So I think that we'll keep doing the same thing, keep isolating folks like we're isolating. It seems to be working, and we're all going in the right direction.
Thank you. Question 5. Who is analyzing the data to tell us why Yakima County has the highest number of cases per 100,000 people? And then there's a second part to it. What relief is now available for small businesses? Oh, that's question 6. Sorry. So I'm going to keep going. Who is analyzing the data to tell us why Yakima County has the highest number of cases per 100,000 people?
Well, I'll take a stab at that one. So that's a question I've had since the very beginning is, you know, when we're talking about the people who are contacting this disease, and also, you know, the folks that are losing their life over it. I mean, is there some kind of a common denominator here? And I think we really need to know that. So in the very beginning, I asked staff to kind of, you know, if we can track the demographics, track it by county, track some different issues. And so they're working on that. And I've done a certain amount of it myself. I'm not ready to share anything I've learned just yet, because, you know, I'd like to prove the information a little more. But one of the things that from staff has done is we get this about every other day. We get a chart. I don't know if you can see that, but it tracks the cases. And what Senator was talking about a little earlier was it tracks it by county and the number of cases and the number of deaths. So we can start to maybe put it together. And some of the demographics we'll have to do ourselves. There's always folks out there that don't really want to get way into the weeds on this, but I think we're starting to see some trends and some answers. So who is analyzing? You know, the question is, or the answer for me is, I've asked staff to help me do that, and in our caucus staff, in the House caucus, the Republican caucus staff. So hopefully we can come up with a little better idea on how it works. I think that's really important that we know that, because I think if we know who is more susceptible to the disease, then we're more able to separate them from society and make it work for them. So, and as such as we already know that the folks in nursing homes are very, very susceptible to this, because they have an underlying health issue anyway, or they probably wouldn't be there. So, you know, so that's something we have learned. Let's pay attention to this and make it work. And I think we're going to have to extend that a little bit farther. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
And this is Alex. So I'd like to weigh in a little bit on that, just because it's really weird. I'm actually a statistician, so I'm a data analyst, so I kind of like doing this kind of stuff. And what I'm kind of seeing, and this is, it's unscientific, it's just Alex Ibarra thinking out loud, is Quincy has 54 cases. We're twice the amount of people per capita than all of Yakima County, twice as much. Mattawa is higher than Yakima, and Moses Lake is getting close. But what I kind of see is the Yakima, Quincy, Mattawa, Moses Lake, what they have in common that I see is we have the essential workers in our communities are usually agricultural folks, farm workers, farms. And so I would venture to guess that Quincy's probably, our workforce is probably at 80%. We don't have a lot of small businesses like the bigger cities. We have little small businesses, but all, you know, Lamb Westons of the world, cold stores, all the farms, all the ranches are all working. And I think that's very similar to Moses Lake, that's similar to Mattawa, and similar to the Yakima areas like Sunnyside's getting hit hard. Yakima, the outskirts of Yakima are getting hard, and that's the farm communities. And I think because everybody's working and interacting together, that, in my opinion, again, just my opinion, nothing scientific, I think that because you have the interaction of all those people working different than other locations, that's why you see the big uptick in those particular communities. Again, that's all non-scientific, my 2 cents.
Thank you. I'll move to the question 6 that I started to go into. What relief is now available for small businesses, more specifically for people in industries such as ours, professional services and architects?
There is relief on a federal level, but it seems like, from what I've learned as a small business owner, it changes quite often. We had the PPP program, Payroll Protection Program, on a federal level. there were so many applications for those funds that it was depleted within about 2 weeks. If you didn't have your application in right away. And this was simply to protect the payroll, your employees' payroll, protect a mortgage or insurance payments. And like I said, it was gone very quickly. So Congress is looking at it again. The State Department of Commerce has some small programs, but we didn't have a lot in reserve for that. The day before we left Olympia, we allocated $200 million out of our budget stabilization account, and that $200 million was to go to help local departments of health, local counties, because we could see what was happening, what was coming. We wanted to be prepared for that. Our state, believe it or not, is a little bit better prepared than others. But as far as a specific relief for specific types of businesses, I would recommend that you go on the Department of Commerce website and look up different programs. And the funds that are there may or may not be there tomorrow, may or may not be there next week. And that's something that we're going to have to be looking at as a legislature going into another session, to the next session. But it depends on the type of business, and we're paying attention to that. So, and there also, Representative Ibarra mentioned the farming and the farmers. USDA just came out with a large chunk of money for farmers, for food banks, people who are part of the food supply chain, because that has been severely impacted as well during all of this.
So I'd like to just weigh in just a second, because we have so many small businesses in our district in a rural area that are receiving no relief. And so I'll give you an example. We have 5 rodeo stock contractors in the 13th district, and there's nothing for them. Their season is just beginning right now. Most of them at the beginning of the season, as all of us were in seasonal businesses, don't have a lot of money in the bank, right? And now they have no season to look at, with several hundred animals to care for and take care of it. And they've contacted me. They're worried. Our martial arts schools don't have any protection. We have a gymnastics school here in Moses Lake that's been in business for 17 years. There's nothing there for them, and they're looking at this maybe losing it. So we don't have enough safeguards at the moment to do this, and that's one of the things we're pushing, to get some of this back up and running a little bit, so these folks can have a way to stay in business. So I'm very concerned about where it is, and some of our farmers. I'll tell you, we don't really know how far-reaching this will be just yet, because we're going to see our farmers really begin to feel this by the end of this year or the first of next year. We're seeing contracts cut in some of our high-budget crops, such as potatoes. Contracts are being cut anywhere from 30 to 50%. It's going to affect us next year, and it's going to affect these growers this year. So what do they replace? So then they plant corn. Now we have a glut of corn. So how do they replace some of those crops, and keep it some kind of a balance? So I think we're going to see more. I think hopefully USDA can they're working harder at it. They have the ability to do that and analyze it, so we can be able to give some safeguards for our growers, because our food supply is all important, and we all know that. So I just think we're not there yet. I don't think we even have an idea of everything that's going to be affected just yet. So thank you.
I'll move to the next question. Are you concerned about potential cuts to higher education institutions in your district, CWU and Big Bend Community College?
Okay, yeah, gotta be unmuted. Okay, so I've been watching that very closely. Like I said earlier, I have 2 graduating seniors, grandkids in my family. The one has, thankfully, has decided he's going to go into the Army. He's going to join the National Guard. So I commend him for doing that. The other, my granddaughter, is planning on going to Big Bend. and to start her college career. We just got notified yesterday, Big Ben's going to do all online classes in the fall, all online classes. So that's going to be very, very different. I'm not sure how they're going to offer some of those. How do you learn how to fly an airplane on a computer? I think, you know, Tom could mention to answer that question, but so that's a decision that the Big Ben made. I have not heard across the board cuts yet. We are going to be considering that when we get back to Olympia, but that's the decision Big Ben made. So.
There was additional question with that, and you kind of alluded to going back to the session. So if you haven't heard, when do you believe the legislator will be called into a special session?
That's a great question. Get unmuted. So, well, I'm the person who doesn't totally believe we'll go back into special session. I don't think that we have a reason just yet. But if we do, for sure, it'll be after the next revenue forecast before they'll be considered. Because if we did go into special session, it'll be over, you know, our economic position. So that would be the best. But really, our budget and the way the governor did cut quite a few things before he signed the budget, he took a lot of things out of there. But and he's asked the different agencies to see where they could make their cuts. You know, right now, beginning now, what can you cut out of your budget to save us some money for the future? So we may not have to go back. It'll depend a lot on, you know, how the agencies come together and the money that they can save and our revenue forecast. And, you know, it's kind of a long-term picture. Next year is going to be when it will really hurt. Next year we'll be faced with some major decisions over our budget.
Have you heard what level of cuts might be needed to balance the budget this year?
I've heard up to 25% cut, but that seems a bit high at this point. We had a meeting yesterday with the director or the Office of Columbia River. Mr. Tebb, he oversees the Yakima Basin Integrated Plan. He oversees the Odessa Aquifer project. And he said they've been asked to severely cut some of their budget lines. So I was elected in 2006, went through 2007, 8, and 9 during the recession, and it does hurt when budgets have to be cut, when the agencies have to be cut. But they will be cutting, and we will not have, like Representative Dent said. We will not have the funding next year going into that budget, the beginning of that budget cycle that we had the last 4 budget cycles even. So would be the last 8 years. Yeah, so it does. He's over here whispering. And it does depend on how quickly we can get people back to work, how quickly our economy rebounds. We've got, we live in Moses Lake, and we've got a whole lot of airplanes sitting on the ground out by Grant County Airport that belong to Boeing. If we can get those up and going, Boeing can get up and going, that's going to be a huge impact. Farmers, if we can get them going, and then all our small businesses all have contributions to this. Now, I know that we didn't really bring it up, but tax relief for small businesses. I'm hoping we can address that, we will be able to help some of these small businesses, their B&O tax, that's on their gross. And if your gross is not very high, and then we're taxing at the same rate that we had before, B&O tax has always been a little bit problematic as a business owner, but we need to look at some type of a tax relief as well. So, which would cut into the profits of the state, so, or the revenue, I mean.
So I have an added question on that. That's not a pre-question, but it's just an added to your conversation about the B&O tax. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with the conversation with the PPP program? There are some people that are concerned that there will be a request of a B&O tax on the money that they received from that SBA loan.
Wow.
Have you heard about that?
I have not, and I would be very, very against that because this is not, the PPP program is a loan or a grant if you do keep your employees hired. But to tax that, I would be absolutely opposed to that, adamantly opposed to that.
So those on the call, we have heard some rumblings on that from the Chamber of Commerce. I'll get you some more information for the senator and the representatives, because I understand there's been some conversation brought forward to the staff of the governor in regards to that small print. So we would love for your support on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, absolutely have our support on that. One of the things that continually comes out of the governor's office, even when we don't have a crisis like this, is, well, we need more money. We don't have enough. We need to raise some taxes. The income tax subject comes up on a regular basis in Olympia. So, you know, there are those folks in the state who believe it will never be enough. There'll never be enough money to run the state. And, you know, and I've watched from the $38 billion budget when I was first elected to $54 billion that was passed last year. And then we had additional $2 billion this year. It's like, when is it ever going to be enough? And the answer is never to some people. But the folks that are more conservatives like we are, well, we think we have enough now, plus we think we have an excess. So, you know, we'll push back on some of this. And right now, you know, our income is predicated on the success of our citizens. And right now we are impeding that success, and we need to think about putting them back in the driver's seat so they can go back into generating revenue, and then we can have revenue for the state. But to increase any kind of a tax and take it out of people right now that are suffering, is just, to me, is just wrong. So
I'll follow up the call with that information so you guys can act on that. So we are about 15 minutes to the hour, and I have 2 more questions, and then I would like to give some time if somebody does have a question that's been on the call. So if you haven't used the Zoom function, there's a chat area. If you can type your question on the chat, and again, we'll be as respectful to the time of Senator Warnock and representatives. We'll try to get to some of those questions, but I really want to save about 10 minutes for some questions of those that have been attending with us this morning. So with that, I'll just finish with a couple last pre-questions that were provided. How have they or their colleagues been financially affected by this? So I'm assuming that's directed to you, the senator and the representatives. And I think we lost, oh no, there they are.
Okay.
Well, it's kind of sorry, Judy.
Go ahead, Alex, go ahead.
Well, I wasn't sure exactly what they were talking about when they said they. Could you maybe explain what that question means?
I'm assuming it's to you as the representatives and the senator, of how have you been financially affected, or how have your colleagues been financially affected?
You can too.
Well, okay. Alex, do you want to start out?
Sure. Financially affected. Well, I no longer am working for Grant County PUD, so I'm just living on the wages I get from the legislature, and so I'm squeaking by, and that's all I'm doing is just squeaking by financially, just to let you know. And so.
Okay. And I've already mentioned my husband and I own a small business. We, because of regulations that have been imposed not only by the governor and some of his proclamations, but a little bit of a self-imposed shutdown with our industry. We have 15 employees, and we only allow them to come in on staggered basis. And so our revenue has been cut in half that we're bringing in on a monthly basis for our clients. And so it's been a huge impact to not only our medical clients, our governmental clients, and our small business clients, but it's been a huge impact. So I understand what it means when we talk about small businesses suffering. And you know, the question was partly about colleagues. I don't know the percentage, we need to look it up, of legislators that either have outside jobs or have signed the front side of a paycheck. There's very few that own their own businesses, I can tell you that. But it's impacted me personally, and it impacted others that I know that in my caucus anyway, that have businesses. So,
Well, as a both the things that I'm involved in aviation and then with the agriculture part of my life, both are considered essential. But it doesn't seem to matter. It has changed. Okay, so at home on the ranch, I raise buffalo. Buffalo are basically, they're sold for meat animals, and well, guess what? Everybody's really concerned. Everybody's feeling the stress. Even if their life is going on, they're still receiving their paycheck. They're being a little more conservative, which as they should be. So they're just a little bit less interested in spending the money or committing to something right now because they don't want to put themselves in a bind. And that is good, prudent money management. And I agree with that. But it does change my operation. So it's not quite as, when I get up in the morning, I think, okay, I've got a lot of calves out here that need to go somewhere. Well, they're not going to go anywhere for a while. So I have to think about, well, I'm going to feed them and take care of them and make this work. So it's something to think about, as well as the aviation part. I don't do a lot in aviation anymore, although I still fly and help some of my friends that are in the business. Well, business is down for them, so they're not going to need me right now. So, and that's okay, but it does cut into some, what I do. And I'm a flight instructor. Well, nobody's going to crawl in an airplane much now and take flight instruction because you can't maintain the 6 foot of distance. And so, it does affect everybody. It's affecting all of us. However we look at it, there's some effect in some way.
Thank you very much. So again, if you haven't used the chat function, if you want to type in your question, we are now 7 minutes to the hour. Would love for those that are attending, if you have a question, to ask Senator and the representatives. Just so that there's not an awkward silence, there is one question that we did. I actually got one in that time. Thank you very much. It looks like they, let's see. First of all, thank you all for your representation of Kittitas County. Yes, thank you very much. KVH has a focus on the continuous health of our community. What we need is a message to not delay care. We need our community that our clinics and hospital are safe. We are here and we continue to hear folks are not coming in because of fear. So not a question, but what would appreciate to state this message. So,
I'd like to just say, Amy, absolutely. We agree with that statement, and we are talking about this and working with the medical community because we understand and we don't want to see this either. So we'd like to see people get back. And one of the ladies up here that I've talked with in our local hospital in Moses Lake is, she says, we know how to manage viruses. We know how to keep our hospital safe. And we work at that. And that's a message we'd like for you to carry. So I've carried that message as much as possible.
And I would add to that, Representative Dent, Carrie, there is a social service subcommittee that is being held on a weekly basis. And they have a communications team that I think this would be a very good communication tool to start putting out to our community. So I can get you that information if you're interested. Okay. It looks like Steve DuPont had a question. Do you have any sense of how a virtual legislative session would be facilitated and if that becomes necessary?
I would think it might be something similar to what we're doing today. This is uncharted territory. I think the last big pandemic we had in our state was in 1918, the Spanish flu. Didn't have any ability to reach out to each other through technology. So it'd be interesting to go back and see what they did at that time period. But I was on a call the other day that we were supposed to have a meeting in Ellensburg, and it was regarding transfer of water rights. It was supposed to be held last week in Ellensburg. We were expecting maybe 30, 40 people. On the call, it was a Zoom call, we had about 138 people. So it is possible to have larger groups. Voting is an issue. If we were to take a vote of the legislature, that would be an issue. So we're going to have some real serious discussions about how we're going to do this, how we're going to hold testimony, how we're going to hold voting, and have the public be able to be served as well. Because TVW does a great job opening up to the public our legislative action, but how would they do that on a Zoom call? And then how do we manage a caucus discussion that is normally done in our caucus rooms only? So a lot of questions about that, but I'm sure we've got some very smart people that are going to try to figure that out if we have to do it that way. So,
thank you. One of the questions I had from the chamber is, from what I understand, there was a letter that was sent to the governor from our county commissioners, and I believe it was in partnership with the city of Ellensburg. We're trying to be very creative with especially some local funding that we have through either lodging tax funds or distressed tax funds, and we were requesting the governor to give us flexibility to use that tax reserve that we have to stimulate small business. We still haven't heard back. So would you be able to support us, and what's your thoughts about some creative funding sources through local fund reserves?
If it's within the authority of that tax to do so, I would be supportive. We do have to be creative. That was a comment made by a local chamber, Moses Lake Chamber. Be creative in how you start your business back up. And our counties are going to have to be creative because, as you may know, there was funds allocated to the state, but the majority of those funds were allocated to, and these were federal funds, were allocated to the larger counties.
Mm-hmm.
Population over 500,000. So we've asked for additional funds to be allocated to the smaller populated counties. So we are doing that, but it would, that's a question that we have not heard before, and I'd like to know if it's legal. And while I'm on that topic of population, please put out, if you can, the idea of having people respond to their census forms or census, fill it out online. It's easy to do. I did it just a day or two after it was open. If we don't have a true census of our counties, especially in District 13, we're not going to get the funds that some of these other counties are. And the east side of the mountains have been very, very poor. It's not just District 13, but all the counties east side of the mountains have been very poor in responding to the census. So there's my push for that.
Please fill out your census.
That might be another message from our social services committee to get that out there.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So we are at 10:30, and I just looked down at the pre-questions. I hope, would you guys have time for just two more questions that I missed on the sheet?
Okay.
Yes, I'm good.
Okay. On a topic different from COVID-19, this person was wondering the thought behind the states granting and the governor signing a bill to allow the Indian reservation the rights to start sports betting.
So I can probably try to answer that one a little bit. So there was a couple bills that came through legislation. One was to have the Indian reservations allow sports betting in their casinos, and another one that was allow Indian reservation casinos to do sports betting and card rooms, and another place, but it was the card rooms and that. And that particular bill, the one with the casinos and the sports cards clubs, didn't go through because the sports or the card rooms wanted to do iPhone apps so you could gamble on your iPhone. And so I think a lot of legislators were against that particular item being in there. So they kind of didn't want to let the card rooms do that. And when they tried to change the legislation a little bit, the card rooms didn't want to change that particular feature of sports betting on your iPhone. And so I think that's where a lot of the legislators went back and said, okay, so we don't want that to happen on the iPhones and the apps. We just want to happen in the card rooms and in the casinos. And what I remember is that the casinos, Indian casinos, were not going to allow iPhone betting and apps on your iPhone. And so that's why I went that direction. And according to some of the data, it shows that there's like, you know, some person quoted about $50 million worth of sports betting in the state of Washington. But then if you look at the data from Oregon, they say that there's hardly any money coming in taxes to the state of Oregon due to adding sports betting. So it's kind of, there may be tax revenue, but nobody's really sure. According to Oregon, who has implemented it, there is hardly any revenue coming from sports betting. So there was no tax base to kind of lose.
And he explained it well. There was more than one bill out there, and there was a very large card room company that was out pushing for some of this. But and this is one of those bills where you hear different things depending on which caucus you're in, and it does change as you work through the legislature. But I didn't support it because I heard from a couple of the card rooms in my districts, and I thought, you know, we if we're going to open it up, if we're going to open up sports betting, and I understand the iPhone betting, that would be too much. Anybody could do it. And there would be no controls over it. But I didn't support that bill simply because I thought that if we were going to do it, we need to open it up to the private card rooms also. So you know, we don't always agree on what things should go through, but I do understand that there may not have been a huge tax revenue from it anyway. So. Okay, so that's it.
Well, I want to thank everyone that joined us, especially Senator Warnick and Representatives Dent and Ybarra. We really appreciate this opportunity to connect with you. I hope that we can continue doing something very similar of town halls. I think it's very informative, and it allows the district to ask questions and hopefully get some answers or clarifications. To those that joined us today, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate you staying informed and being engaged in this process, especially during this time. So at this point in time, I would like to say thank you very much, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.